welcome to the 2022 9/11 Mahoning Valley Memorial. At this time, we'd ask the Catholic War Veterans of Post 1292 to open today's ceremony with a volley. This time, we will ask Rabbi Courtney Berman of the congregation Ohev Beth Shalom to open the ceremony with today's prayer.
Thank you very much. Dear God, we ask, help us to preserve the memory of the fallen, taken not in battle but in innocence. Comfort us, Holy One, as the images sear, as we try to comprehend the unfathomable. We become rescuers sifting the rubble. We're searching for meaning in the whirlwind. No preparation can be made for this disaster. We push aside debris, looking for answers. Show us your face and compassion. You are our beacon of consolation. Focus your healing light through acrid smoke, clearing a path through our tears. Begin with us the task of recovery. Renew our resolve to pursue righteousness. Secure us again in safety and peace, our nation's soul forever changed. And we ask, may the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for all of us and all the world. Amen.
If you would, please remain standing. At this time, the Austintown Fire Department Honor Guard will post the colors.
Detail, halt, order, arm. Left face. Present arms. Order, arms.
We are honored to have with us today Austintown Fitch High School graduate Elizabeth Jadu to sing our national anthem.
Present arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free
This time it is my pleasure to introduce the director of the Austintown Fitch Concert Choir, Bill Klein, and the Austintown Fitch Concert Choir with a selection of patriotic songs. You all may be seated.
They never asked for glory, they never sought the fame, but they answered the call just the same. Showing courage beyond duty,
with noble valiant heart,
the flame of freedom shining in the dark. Because of the brave, our flag still flies high, declaring the truth that freedom is still alive. For all that was built and the sacrifice paid, we are the land of the free. Because of the
embrace the cause of justice, and cling to liberty, and honor those who serve selflessly.
They have shown uncommon valor against the sword of tyranny, and have paid the price that we might be free. Because of the brave, our flag still flies high, declaring the truth that freedom is still alive. For all that was built and the sacrifice made, we are the land of the free. Because of our flag still flies high, declaring the truth that freedom is still alive. For all that was built and the sacrifice made, we are the land of the free. We are the land of the free. We are the land of the
Everybody says, what are you wearing sunglasses for? There's no sun out. It's to hide the tears, thanks to Bill Klein and that choir. Thank you guys so much. Give them one more big round of applause. The committee feels it's more important year after year to welcome the choir back, especially now that these students were not alive in 2001 when this occurred. So it's important that on the day we remember, we teach them about those that we honor. Thank you again. At this time, I would welcome Chaplain Mike Smith of the Austintown Fire Department for the Firefighter's Prayer.
The Firefighter's Prayer. When I am called to duty, God, whenever flames may rage, give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me to embrace a little child before it's too late, or some older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fill my calling and give the best in me to guard my neighbor and protect his property. And if according to your will I have to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hand my children and my wife. Amen.
And at this time, for the police officer's prayer from the Austintown Police Department, retired Detective Sergeant Jeff Toth.
When I put on my uniform, Lord, please help me be courageous and protective, serving my community. If I should have to risk my life, help me to be brave. Give me wisdom, give me strength when there are lives to save. Remind me why I wear this badge and to fulfill the call. Remind me that you're here with me and watching over me. And when the day is over, Lord, most of all I pray that I come home to those I love safely every day. Amen.
We are very fortunate today to have two guest speakers, and it is my privilege to introduce to you, at this time, from the Austintown Police Department, Lieutenant Mark Scowron.
Look around you. All of you have something in common with people lost on September 11th, 2001. There's a mutual thread that pulls us here, binds us to this tragedy. Now, 21 years later, we need to reaffirm our commitment and emulate the heroes of that day. I see firefighters whose brave comrades rushed to the scene and battled to save as many souls as possible until they too were claimed by the falling towers. 343 of them, all at once. Then many more will follow from attempting to rescue the unfortunate people caught up in these horrendous circumstances. Look around you now and remember. Witness the bravery of FDNY firefighter Stephen Siller. Although he had finished his shift, went back to his station to gather his gear and go to the World Trade Center. He was stopped at the Brooklyn Battery Bridge due to traffic, so he strapped on 60 pounds of equipment and ran to the site, only to be lost. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation was founded to remember his sacrifice. He took action. I see police officers who went there to work that day fully expecting to go home that night. 72 men and women who were doing their job, protecting the scene, never expecting to feel a sudden rush of debris and the dust and the gray cloud that enveloped them. They did what they were trained to do that day. They took action. I see American citizens who went to work every day expecting to battle rush hour traffic and crowded sidewalks, but never dreaming they would be caught up in a tempest of smoke, flame, and dust that would consume them as they tried to escape. I'm sure they were on their untold stories of bravery and camaraderie in the attempts to flee, standing together, dying together, comforting each other until the final moment. Then darkness. They took action. Look around you and remember. Remember Rick Rescorla, the head of security for Morgan Stanley, based in the South Tower. His insistence on an evacuation plan and his calm demeanor as he stood in the stairwells directing people out of the South Tower saved 2,687 out of 2,700 employees of the company. He went back into the tower with his security team to look for stragglers. He was last seen on the 10th floor climbing upward. He died in the collapse and his body was never found. He was a Vietnam veteran who fought with the 1st Air Cav in the Ai Drong Valley, who answered the call to duty many times in his life. Some would say he had already done his part. Some, but not him. He took action. Look around you and remember. Commit to your memory the passengers of Flight 93. They were our first warriors to charge into the fray. Although they knew they would die, they saved countless lives on the ground by being brave just a few minutes longer than they thought they could be. They took action. Look around you and remember. Hold in your memory our military men and women who volunteered to fight and cripple the terrorists who carried out the attack. They joined the fight to make certain that the evil that was done was answered and punished. Our war fighters, some never to return, some that are with us, just as generations before them. Some who sit amongst us here recognize the need to defend the country. They took action. Today, 21 years after 9/11 attacks on New York City, the Pentagon, and the Battle of Flight 93, we gather here as we do every year and remember. Is that enough? Do speeches, flags, and bowed heads satisfy our obligation to the dead, the wounded, and the traumatized? Does thank you ease the burden? No. We need to take action. Just as firefighters, police officers, EMS, military, and American citizens did on 9/11/2001, we need to take action. Today, commit yourself and your time. Contribute to Wounded Warriors, Tunnels to Towers, the Gary Sinise Foundation, or any one of dozen organizations that help and support our heroes and their survivors. Participate in maintaining this beautiful memorial. Don't just look around you and remember. Be decisive, get moving, take action.
And at this time, U.S. Army and YSU ROTC, please welcome Major Kevin W. Bukowski.
Distinguished guests, friends, families, community organizations of Austintown, I'd like to thank everyone for showing up. Kevin Bukowski, I'm a retired major, obviously. I've been retired since 2016. I'm the senior military science instructor at Youngstown State University, Army ROTC. The dirty civilian contractor, or as one of my captains likes to say, the academic mercenary. But I am retired from the United States Army, enlisted, non-commissioned officer, and an officer, and I retired as a major. And I spent 24 years in the Army, most of it after 9/11. I suppose we all have our 9/11 memory. For my father's generation, it was where were you when JFK was murdered. For me, it was where were you when the Challenger exploded. Well, that changed on 9/11. Where were you on 9/11? I was a young cavalry lieutenant on Kahn Barracks, Schweinfurt, Germany. We were getting ready to go to gunnery. Around 3:30 in the afternoon, I was getting a chicken sandwich and a biscuit with my best friend and my son's namesake, Adam. We were talking about the troop dining in we had recently. It's like a military ball, except there are no spouses allowed. So it's pretty, a lot of fun for the boys and the girls of the unit. I noticed what was on the TV above the counter, and we watched the second plane hit. He turned to me and said, pointed to our food and said, "We better enjoy this," motioning to our late lunch. A minute or two later, the air raid siren went off. We ran to the squadron headquarters building. We had no idea what was going to happen. My life changed at that moment. That was almost exactly 21 years ago, about 2 hours ago. As we grow older, one day we'll stop gathering like this. It's unfortunate, but it's going to happen. Back when 9/11 happened, it was compared to Pearl Harbor. After that murderous attack, despite being labeled a day that will live in infamy, it also eventually faded from our national mind and into the history books like so many other historical events before it. The day is now remembered not vividly and emotionally, but historically and analytically. Question on a history class quiz. Only the leaking oil of the USS Arizona remains to remind us of the horror and violence visited upon us that day. 21 years ago, the comparison between Pearl Harbor and 9/11 was common. Pearl Harbor mobilized an entire nation and awoke the sleeping giant. 12% of the American population served in World War II. The cost of the war was shared by all as communities rationed gasoline, grew victory gardens, purchased war bonds, paid increased taxes, and worked at the factories. The nation and her people sacrificed together. That sense of shared sacrifice and grit in the face of adversity led us to defeat the genocidal Nazi regime and the militarist Japanese Empire. The greatest generation, her soldiers returned home triumphant, avenged those that they lost on December 7th. With victory, peace and redemption and pride. We assumed a new role in the global order, and the military demobilized. Nation's sons and daughters returned home. Both of my grandfathers, one a sailor, one a soldier, returned home to the south side of Pittsburgh. One to his job in the post office, one to the steel mills. The memory of World War II in Pearl Harbor faded with notes of victory and triumph. And so too will the memory of 9/11 fade from our national consciousness. As those of us who experienced that day age, as memories fade and the number of people who weren't alive then grow, the stun shock and the pain will dim, like a rock worn smooth by the water of time. So today, the 21st anniversary of September 11th, I ask, how shall we remember September 11th? For me, we remember the heroic actions of so many of that day that seek to be worthy of that sacrifice. I'm not going to recount. I have generally the same stories that the good lieutenant before me had. So I'm not going to recount the stories. The story of Todd Beamer on United Flight 93, or Rick Riscorla in the South Tower of the World Trade Center, or Lieutenant Commander David Tarantino, who fought through the fire in the live electrical wires in the Pentagon to rescue 12 people. But we are here to honor the families who lost a sister, a brother, a mother, a father, who were killed that day. We look into the eyes of our parents or our children and feel that we would face a certain death to protect them. And that's exactly what they did. And yet many of these individuals saw death in front of them and ran towards it to protect people they didn't even know. In this, there is the very best of us, and I take comfort and pride for the families who lost so much that day, whose wounds will never heal with the passage of time. We must also remember our wars. I must tell you, as a soldier, I felt listless, shamed, and angered over the last year. Many of us had a knot of despair as we witnessed an abandoned Afghanistan crumble and the heroic evacuation that claimed the lives of 13 more U.S. service members, to the very same Taliban that we fought for two decades as they retook the country. First reaction for many is to ask, what were those sacrifices for? And that, my friends, is a question that cracks an old soldier's soul. 43% of all global war on terrorism veterans are 70% more disabled. We were and are the guardians and sentinels of this nation and have given freely on the altar of duty, both the blood, limbs, and lives. Less remarkable but more common are the sacrifices of marriages, being present for the births of children, first steps, first days of school, and generally the ceremonies and gatherings of life that serve as touch points and memories. In their place, many of us have absence. Most common, perhaps, are the absence. In that absence, the echoes and the dreams, the faces that call out to us, the battle we fight against memories that demand our attention, and the danger that lurks just out of sight. What we lost is tangible, real, so real that many days we force it away from us, and lost is perhaps more appropriate than sacrificed. The word sacrificed implies the foreknowledge and agreement, and we do willingly sacrifice much, happily and joyously. We're a little odd that way. But we've lost friends, families, memories, a peaceful mind, and a content soul. What shall you remember? I ask that you remember that we went, without hesitation, at the nation's call, that we did our duty over and over again. Remember that we are of you, not apart from you. That men and women from Austintown died in the global war on terrorism. That among you are those who served in the global war on terrorism. And I can look out in the crowd right now and see some of you. I can tell just by the way you stand that you also served. And with that memory, don't revere, don't worship, don't thank us for our service. Vote, know your candidates, be involved in the political processes, knowing that your votes and our elected leaders shape whether or not, when and how your fellow community members will deploy in harm's way to defeat and destroy our nation's enemies. You, the voters, are our guardians. Fellow veterans, what shall we remember? To the men and women that served over the past 20 years, we did our duty in the face of tremendous adversity and at a cost that perhaps will never be fully revealed. We honor the memory of those that died on September 11th. We did right by them. We avenged their sacrifices, nobly and fully. We also remember those that we served with. Know that they would want us to remember and celebrate. As Patton said, it is foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died. Rather, we should thank God that such men existed. I remember all of this. I remember this ceremony. And if you'll indulge me in a minute, I'd like to tell you about some of them. I remember Adam and Andy, Specialist Sweet, Corporal Yates, Sergeant Buenos. Sergeant Buenos had this holster that was so faded from the sun that it turned pink. My first sergeant hated that pink holster. But it's not like we could go right down the street and buy another holster, so he tolerated it. I remember my Iraqi, African, Afghan, and Allied counterparts and their families, many of whom I broke bread with. I remember Brigadier General Zarifi, Brigadier General Abdul Qadir, and Colonel Aziz, who sent my son an elaborate hand-decorated pen for his 11th birthday, so that he's, in his words, could write with an elegance and panache as befitting a warrior's son. Well, I'm no warrior, but just a soldier that was doing his job. I remember Captain Mahmoud, the smartest young Afghan officer I've ever met, who refused to identify with a tribe because he spent his entire life amidst ethnic and tribal violence. I was sure, at the bottom of my soul, I was sure he was going to lead Afghanistan one day. We can all learn a little bit from Captain Mahmoud. They don't answer emails or texts anymore. And I like to think they survived the past year, that they're in the mountains or escaped the country, but they'll always live inside me, as trite as that sounds. So today, I'm thankful for our gathering. I want this to be remembered, and I'm proud to have been a part of it. For this ceremony, for the remembering, for everyone here, and our collective memory. The poet Horace once said, many brave men lived before Agamemnon, but all are overwhelmed in eternal night, unwept, unknown, because they lacked a sacred poet. Today, we are their sacred poets, remembering Todd Beamer and Rick Rescorla, their heroic actions, and those that fought to save lives that day, and those who have died since then. We remember those who charged forward to save people they didn't even know. Remember their families, their sons and daughters, and with our gathering, with our memory, we stave off that eternal night. Remember them. Remember what you felt, and most importantly, pass it on. Never forget. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you, Lieutenant Mark Scowen and Major Kevin Bukowski, for speaking today. It was an honor to have you both here. Could we please give them one more round of applause? So many of us pull into this parking lot to drop off recycling, pick up our students from school, attend a softball game, and don't make it past the parking lot. It's quite a shame because quite an effort has gone into making this memorial what it is. There are so many pieces of the puzzle here for us to be able to remember what happened on 9/11. To introduce you to this 9/11 memorial is Mahoning County Commissioner, Mr. Anthony Trafficani.
Thank you and good morning. It's an honor to be here today, be invited by the 911 committee who put so much thought and effort into this park. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been 2 decades that have now passed. There is a generation that has now grown from childhood into adulthood. And I'm sure that if you would ask anybody when and where they were on the day this tragedy happened 21 years ago, they would be able to tell you. As we watch the apocalyptic images that play on TV, it does open up wounds for many of us. But despite those wounds being open, there's also a healing that shows, yes, as human beings, we may be vulnerable, but we are not fragile. Because this country proved itself over and over and over again how this nation came together to thwart an enemy that we have still be fighting 20 years now into the future. Without our first responders, without our military, without the heart and soul of this country, we would not have overcome that tragedy. I looked at the renditions this morning on the news and saw those towers come down. Those people lost their lives simply because they went to work that day, telling their wife, their son or daughter or grandparent, "I'll see you tonight for dinner. I'll call you around noon to check on you. Yeah, we'll have lunch tomorrow. I didn't have a chance to schedule it, but we'll get together." Those dreams and those conversations never took place because of an enemy that wanted to plot the death and destruction of this country. But I'll tell you one thing, America's not going to let that happen, and we know that. And that's why, thank you. You can applaud that. That was very kind. It's why we support our military, we support our first responders, and we support our police and firefighters. Thank you for saving our lives. Thank you for being there, personally from myself. I know you hold up to a higher oath than many of us because you have to live up to that oath on a daily and an hourly basis. Thank you. And that's what brings us here today to this beautiful 911 Memorial Park. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask if anybody was here from Pat Conley's family. If you are, please stand. Many of you may know or not know, but this park was the vision of Mr. Pat Conley, a lifelong friend of mine and many of you here today. Pat did an incredible job organizing people and volunteers to make this park what it is. And just don't take my word for it. Have the opportunity to walk through this park. Over here to my right, we have the I-beams that were in one of the twin towers, I believe around the 91st floor. There's a chapel, which is right here to my right. That is a non-denominational chapel. The gazebo is one of a kind, and it's in shape of the Pentagon, and we remember what happened to the Pentagon. And in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, they're on their way to do more destruction. This park pays tribute to those incidences. The stones are the artwork of a local artist who's very well known, Mr. Ray Simon. One represents the police, and the other one presents the fire on Flight 93. There's two pagodas that stand behind me. Along the policeman's walkway, the first one is to honor Flight 93, and the urn contains soil from the crash site in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, along with a brick for all the heroes on Flight 93. And if you remember Flight 93, they made a movie of it. It's called Let's Roll, where they were taking back and turning the tides on the terrorists that took that plane that morning. There are trees planted in the back along the creek for the victims of Flight 93. All of these items and many other things that exist here were because of Pat Conley and the 9/11 committee volunteers in Austintown. I want to commend the trustees for being part of this and keeping this park beautiful and for their support. I want to thank my fellow county commissioners as well. We all enjoy coming here, and I enjoy being here at this service. It's a very, very somber day, but the residents of Austintown and Mahoning County, be rest assured, this park really covers all bases of what took place on that tragic day 21 years ago. Mr. Klein, I want to thank you for a fantastic choir of young people. You do a great job. Choir, you're excellent. Thank you, and I know you're going to sing as soon as I shut up. So enjoy, and I'll see you in a little bit to read the times. Thank you very much. God bless America.
Thank you, Commissioner Trafficani. And yes, once again, it is my pleasure on behalf of the 9/11 Committee to introduce Austintown Fitch Concert Choir Director Bill Klein and the Austintown Fitch Concert Choir.
Lord,
At this time, we'll have the reading of the times by Commissioner Anthony Trafficani.
Times the planes hit. 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11, World Trade Center number 1, North Tower. 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175, World Trade Center number 2, South Tower. 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77, West Wing of the Pentagon. 10:03 a.m., United Flight 93, Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
Would you all please stand? At this time, we will have a 21-gun salute by the American Legion Post 737 of Lake Milton.
Detail. Catch. Hut. One step forward. About face. Prepare to fire. Port arm. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Order. Arm. Order. Arm. About face.
You all may be seated. Special thanks to Austintown Fitch High School Orchestra, Director Mark Pepino, and from the American Legion Post 301, Gail Reedy, for playing taps for us today. This time it's my privilege to introduce to you somebody who truly needs no introduction. Much like Pat Conley, he doesn't like to take a lot of spotlight, nor does he like to take recognition or thanks. But he's here to give special thanks. But before we do that, I'd like you all to help me in thanking him. Many of you know him. He maybe coached your son. He coached me in Pee Wee football. He may have played at a family funeral or presented a flag at a family funeral as a member of our American Legion. He is so heavily involved with our military. He goes over to the school to also educate the children about our 9/11 memorial. And now, since Pat's passing, he has been charged with being the chairman of our 9/11 committee. Please help me give a round of applause in thanking Mr. Sam Swager. And now that I took up a minute of his 3 minutes we told him he could have, Sam, keep it short. With special thanks, Mr. Sam Swager III.
Good afternoon. Could everybody hear me? Well, I'd like to invite you all to, the speakers before me, to our 21st anniversary of that cowardly attack on our country. I say some things I shouldn't say a lot of times, and I've been told that. So I'll try to keep it decent. A lot has happened since September 11, 2001, and a lot has changed. Not only within our country, it seems to be divided sometimes, but also at this memorial site. But at this site, it's good. We're not divided here. We're all together. At least this community here in this valley is. But every year we talk about Mr. Connolly. And every year prior, he used to get on me and yell at me for recognizing him. But I always did then, and I will continue until the day I no longer can. I can't say till I pass away because my family gets mad at me because I'm always saying I'm going to go. So, like I said, I have to watch what I say. But Pat was a great friend of mine. He was an Army veteran also, and he served as a union representative out in Lordstown, Local 1112, along with myself. We went through a lot out there as union brothers, and we went through a lot here as brothers, as a friend and a brother. And this was his vision after that cowardly attack from, I can't say it, but he wanted to do something. And he tried to get a little bit of everything for this area. We went around to look at different sites, but we found this site here. Well, Pat did. I came on board probably about 6 months later, and with the thanks of our township and our trustees at that time, they kind of donated this piece to us. And then it all began, one thing after another, a couple different drawings, and Pat had the wisdom to get something from every aspect of that cowardly attack. And he did. We got 4 stones from the Pentagon. Took us about 4 or 5 years with the paperwork. Earth from Shanksville to go up there with a 5-gallon bucket and come back. 2 beams, the floor joist from the towers, which we went up, myself, Pat, and his brother, and driving back from New York in a cube truck with them sticking out the back, and people asking what they were, and when we told them, they just went in tears. We've had a lot of help here. And I pushed our union brothers because them I-beams were set in place by the iron workers. Our chapel, our gazebo, the concrete was poured by cement workers, the apprenticeship program. So myself and Pat, we knew where to go for help, and especially free help. You know, so I do have a photo of Pat, and I'm going to have it, take it down to a gentleman and have it enlarged and put it in a frame inside the chapel as you enter, as the founder of this beautiful memorial site. If anybody has a problem with it, that's life. They can come and deal with me. I'm 74, but I can still move a little bit. The sign on our right, we had a banner last year, but that sign there says it all. Thank you, Pat. 1937 to 2021. I didn't know Pat was 11 years older than me. But Pat had a rough life. He was brought up in an orphanage in Pittsburgh. But this is what he did. This is his dream. Anything I do here, I do because of Pat, and I do for Pat. The thanks I get should be just for knowing an individual like Pat Connolly. I'm just his work bee. Okay, that's what I am. I ran for trustee a couple times. I'm a Clydesdale man. I'm not a brain. I'm a workhorse. I'd like to thank some people. I'd like to thank especially my family, my wife, my two granddaughters, and my daughters out there. They're running around, the Girl Scouts, for putting up with me because I come home. Now I know how fat Pat felt. I'm just getting too old for this crap. I am, man. I can't run as much. I can't walk as far. And when I look at younger, no, I can't say that. Never mind. But it's a different world today, man. You gotta watch what you do and what you say. So, the reason I'm saying that because a young lady who's part of the Austin Town Fitch's Junior ROTC, Dominique Fitch. I went up to see him the other day. She ran up to me and gave me a hug, and I said, "Oh, please, Dominique, don't do that, man. This isn't the time and generation to be doing that to an old guy like me. And I don't want to be in the paper." You know, so, but our committee, where's our committee at? Stand up. Stand up on the committee. I know you can stand up. Katie Gazzo, so our secretary, treasurer, she's the brains of the outfit. Mr. Davis, Mr. Kent, Mr. Santos. Mr. Kent, Mr. Santos are trustees, Mike Budis, Mr. Kirshner, and Mr. Crespo, Mr. Viano, and Ms. Tex Martin, and Mr. Durrett. If I missed anybody, it's just because I'm old, man. I'm sorry. Our park department, who cuts our grass and does a lot of stuff up here for us. We couldn't do it without them. Todd and the group down there, and Tex and Nate. Austin Town trustees, our superintendent of schools, our Fitch athletic director, Mr. Hauser and Mr. Miller and Jonesy. and Robin, the principal across the street, and Mr. Penk, the 7th grade principal. And it comes to our favorite people. This awesome choir here, led by Mr. Klein and Mr. McLean. I knew it. And they also lead the band, which is awesome. And my granddaughter's in the band. The other one's in AMS's band. It's too much. And they're awesome students, awesome kids, young men and women who are always here. And to Elizabeth Jadu, who I kind of drafted because her sister, come up here. Come on. She's been doing our singing and ever since she was a junior. And now she just graduated from law school. So we kind of drafted her young sister. But and this is the generations. These kids are wonderful, not just in this area, but all around the country. They get a bad rap from some bad people. That's all I gotta say. We get a lot of help from our community, our veterans organizations, American Legion Post 737, Catholic War Veterans 1292 belong to. They never say no. We have 40 young girls here from across the street for 7th and 8th grade volleyball one day. Driving tractors and the gator and hauling 15 yards of mulch. It's probably the only time in their life they're going to work that hard. But they'll come back. They already said they would. We got the junior ROTC at Fitch, who's come and helped us out immensely. And if you walk through them 2 arbors on the island and see the signs, who made them, the wood shop at Austintown Fitch High School, the students made them. They had 2 teams to try to outdo each other. The one taller one was done by the football players because they wanted theirs bigger. But these are the kids that come out of your community. Okay? So it's like anything else. All you got to do is approach them and ask them. They will help you. I only got 5 more pages. But Girl Scout Troop 899 up there, they come every year and hand out the flags and the programs. My granddaughter's in there. They're in band. One's in track, one's on the volleyball team. And then they dance. They're better dancers than anything else. I'm not knocking them, I just think they are. Ohio National Guard. Thank you. Sergeant Esther and his group, and I'd like to thank Sergeant First Class Perez for every year he gets these folks out, and they help us in our parades and everything else. So thank you, and God bless you. Our police and fire, can't do enough without them. I don't care what people say or all the bad news sometimes. You know, bad people deserve to be knocked around. I don't care. I don't care. I'll give you one example. My son, Sammy, a great kid. But when he was still in school, him and a bunch of his friends took little Cobalt convertible. Went out. There was about 7 of them in that little car. They had a quart of beer. They got caught by a police officer. I can't remember his name. I think he's passed away. He called me up. I went up there. He told me what happened. He had his license. I asked him if he had a knife. He goes, "What do you need a knife for?" He gave it to me. And this is why people say I'm negative and I'm hardcore. I took my son's license and I cut it up in 4 pieces. It's the way it was back then, man. That's life. He got off better than me. I would have been part of that wall over there in my generation. But I'd like to thank everybody. We've worked hard this year to do this. We did a lot of things. I really believe Mr. Connolly's up there. Hope he's not mad at me. We cut down 14 trees to open up the areas. I'm just hoping he's not. I'll find out when I go up there and meet him. Probably waiting there to knock me on my butt. But we are planning on putting some maples in here, some little Japanese maples. But I'm sorry it took so long. And if we have any dignitaries or any elected official, would you please stand? You can stand, man. Stand up. I can't help you. I need help to get off this podium. So, but that's all I have, and I really appreciate everybody coming out here. And I really appreciate the man upstairs for giving us a great day. Even though it's a little cloudy, it's still a great day. Thank you. Thank you all.
Trustees, please remind Lieutenant Scourin to bring his taser next year. We would have cut that down to the 3 minutes, Sam, but he forgot his taser. We'll show Sam hardcore. There are some dignitaries here. We do want to recognize them because they are shy. They all didn't stand up. Our Austintown Board of Trustees, Trustee Steve Kent, Trustee Monica Devers, Trustee Robert Santos, former State Senator, State Representative Bob Hagan, current State Representative Michelle Hagan. I saw Senator Rulli in the back. He probably had to go check the meat counter, but he was here. Thank you for being here in attendance. And of course, Mahoning County Commissioner Anthony Trafficani. Thank you guys for being here and being a part of this event. This committee appreciates your support. At this time, with our closing prayer, would you all please stand as we welcome once again from Congregation Ohev Beth Shalom, Rabbi Courtney Berman.
Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. We praise you, our eternal God, who blesses our people and our country with peace. Amen.
You may be seated. I know we've stretched this out, so I want to close this quickly, but I'm always charged with ending this ceremony and sending you on your way. I couldn't help but sit the other day as I was on vacation this past week, and as I was sitting in front of the TV and flipping through the channels, happened to stumble upon a story of 9/11. It was a story of the flag raised by the 3 firemen at the scene of the Twin Towers. That flag had come from a boat that was sitting in the marina, and one of the firemen had grabbed it and grabbed 2 of his members of his fire company and said, "Come with me." And they took that down to the site and they raised that flag. It's a shame that tragedies are what it takes to bring a country together. When you look at the events of that day and you look at what it did to our country as it brought us together, simply that flag being raised at the Twin Tower site gave resolve to our country. It brought back faith that no matter what, we would rise from the ashes. I can remember being a young kid at that time. I was only 23, 24, watching Sammy Sosa run onto the field, waving an American flag. I can remember, and it has just been recently retold again, the story of Derek Jeter and how he met President Bush below the tunnels of Yankee Stadium prior to their World Series game in Yankee Stadium. The funny story is that President Bush, because of the nervousness of the event and the attacks on our country, was wearing a very heavy bulletproof vest. And he had to throw out the first pitch. And so, of course, he asked one of the members of the New York Yankees, "Where could I go to warm up? I want to throw a couple pitches." And he went into the tunnels, and lo and behold, who greeted him but Derek Jeter? He asked Derek Jeter, he said, "Do you have any words of advice for me?" He said, "Yes, Mr. President, it's Yankee Stadium. Don't bounce it in, they'll boo you." President Bush threw a perfect strike, if you remember. Being a former elected official, people ask me, "Jim, what do you think is wrong with our country?" And with no disrespect to our elected officials here today, I tell everybody, too many D's, too many R's, not enough Americans. On 9/11, there were no D's, there were no R's, there were Americans. We came together as a country. So when you leave here today, I ask you to simply do that. There's too many people fighting amongst family members at the kitchen table because we can't have civil conversations about politics. We fight over who our president is, who our president was. Just remember, no matter what you vote, whether it's a D or an R, truly, you're voting for one common goal, and that's the success of America. And it takes all of us working together to make that happen. So honor those that pay that ultimate sacrifice on 9/11 by being an American. Once again, thank you for being here. Please do not stop. There is no imaginary line that blocks you off from dropping off your recycling or whatever you're doing here. This committee has worked very hard. Everybody has put a great effort into making this place look so beautiful. We welcome you. There is coffee and donuts in the back. We kind of put them back there to force you to go that direction. So please walk among the memorial and enjoy today. Thank you very much and have a great day.
In association with Austintown Local Schools and Austintown Township.